everyone. Good afternoon and welcome to this last chapter, Kinship, Family and Marriage. This is not a long chapter, however, it is a very important one for anthropologists since family is one of the main institutions that anthropologists study. So I'm just going to go through main key terms that we use in anthropology to define family and kinship. And I just want you to question what is family and how can we define family. So this is actually the first questions here I have for you. So what is family and who constitutes a family? This is a very simple question, yet very important since we need in anthropology, that's how, remember what we said about enculturation. We learn our culture through our surroundings and first and mainly through our family. So who is part of our family and how can we define family? So what constitutes a family varies varies across the globe and depending on the culture. But mainly, usually, family defines some obligations that group members have to one another. It could be both socially or economically. Family could be a relationship between people that is through blood, but not necessarily, because if you think of, for instance, your family-in-law, you do not share any any genetic line with those people. However, they are part of your family. Um, then there are different types of family, and family members usually live together, but it's not always the case. So here I will talk about kinship now, and it will also help us to understand who is part of the family. So what is a kinship system? Here it's basically a system of meaning and power created to determine who is related to whom and to define their mutual expectations, rights, and responsibilities. So, so what is the difference between kinship and family? A family member, a family in general, is usually a group of people who are closely related to one another. It could be by blood or marriage, like I said. So, for example, in the previous question, when I ask you who is family, I guess you would have said mother, father, siblings, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, right? So we usually think of those members. Kinship is a little bit larger because um, it designates a relation or connection by blood, marriage, or adoption, but a connection that is not necessarily close to us, right? Because the word kinship is a generic word that describes the system and how we are connected to one another and what are the mutual relationships and, like I said, expectations, rights, responsibilities. For instance, what do you have, how do you have to behave with your grandparents? What are the expectations? All right. Or, for example, what are the responsibilities for the parents towards their children? So, kinship defines this kind of relationship. Okay. So, let me show you how do we analyze that in anthropology and what kind of tool do we use. So here in anthropology we use what we call kinship diagram, And here there are some specific symbols that I use. They are always the same, and doing that can help us to understand the different relationship between members of a community. If you want to analyze how is the group functioning, it is often important to understand also the different relations between the members, and specifically kinship relation. So here, ego is the person that that is concerned with the kinship diagram. So ego is always indicated in plain color. And if it's a male that is doing the kinship diagram, it will be a triangle. If it's a female, it will be a circle. So here, ego, as you can see, is in the middle. All right? And then there are different symbols that I use to indicate the relationship between the members, between the people. The sign equal means married to, all right? So here married to a person, that's the husband. And we can see that this couple has two children, a daughter and a son. The son is also married to a daughter-in-law, and they have a child together. They have a little girl, all right? Then, as you can see again here, when the people are divorced, um, it's this sign here, like the sign difference. When the people are passed, here, as you can see, the triangle is the triangle is cross-checked, and yeah, and then the siblings are connected together, and so on. So this is a very useful tool to analyze kinship relationships, and you should know also that there are different forms um, of kinship system. There are 6 in total, and usually any kind of culture, society is defined using those 6 generic kinship system. I'm not going to mention them here, but if you are interested, I can definitely give you some articles that discuss that. Okay, so keep in mind that anthropologists care about kinship relationship, since it helps them to understand the community, and it says also a lot about transmission and culturation, and how the group is functioning. And in order to understand how it works, they use this diagram to analyze the relationships between the people. Okay, all right, now as you can see here in this map, there are 2 main type of family structure. So there are 2 main types of lineage. Here we have the matrilineal or the patrilineal. Very basically, it just means that for the patrilineal, it means that relatives are identified by tracing descent exclusively through males from a founding male ancestor, right? So the line is um, drawn based on a male ancestor or based on male figures of the family. In the matrilineal system, it's based on the female of the family. All right, so then all the relationships would be attached and would be related to that lineage. So it means that for the matrilineal, okay, when the relatives are identified by tracing descent exclusively through females from the family, then from this side, it means that it would be the female part, the female that would, for instance, pass on their family names or um, their possessions, their so it means that all members of the descent line would belong and would follow either the female for the matrilineal or the male for the patrilineal. All right. Okay, and as you can see here in this map, they are mostly, maybe you cannot see the legend, but in the blue triangle represents here the patrilineal societies, and the red circle represent the female, the matrilineal system. So as you can see here, there are many more patrilineal societies than matrilineal. Though I just wanted to make you realize that it still exists, even if it's not something common in Western cultures. Now I would like you to understand also the difference, since I mentioned it, between what we call clan, lineage, and descent. So here basically descent is a kinship group in which primary relationships are traced through blood. Okay, so here it's what we call consanguineal because it is transmitted through blood. Okay, descent. A lineage, a type of descent group that traces genealogical connection through generation, by linking persons to a founding ancestor. As you can see here, for example, we have a lineage here, A, lineage B, lineage C. Now, those lineages are usually included in a bigger group called clan. So here it is a type of descent group based on a claim to a founding ancestor, but lacking genealogical documentation. So for the clan, it's not possible for sure to say that those members are coming from the same group. However, they are claiming that they have the same ancestor. For the lineage, it's usually a smaller group, and they can tell for sure that they belong to that clan, I'm going to confuse you, that they belong to that group. And for the clan, it's a bigger group that includes lineage, and they cannot tell for sure that they are coming from the same ancestor, but they believe they are. Okay, it's just that they are lacking evidence. All right, so just to be sure, descent, it's a kinship group that is connected through blood. Okay, lineage, a group that traces genealogical connection and that is related to an ancestor. And the clan, it's a bigger group that includes lineages, but that doesn't know if they are connected or not. That is lagging evidences. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about different types of family structure. Here it's not exhaustive. I'm just going to give you the main types, well, the two main types, but there are many more, just so you know. So the first type here is the nuclear family. Nuclear family is comprised of the parents plus the dependent children. It's a very widespread model, but it's not universal. And in some societies, other social units assume functions of nuclear family. However, it's, like I said, widespread model of family. So parents plus dependent children. Now, extended family here, it's relatives of 3 or more generations. So usually you have the nuclear family plus the grandparents plus uncle, aunts, and cousins, right? There are examples of extended family. If you think of extended family among Naya caste of southern India in the Kerala state, it's called Tarawad. Tarawad. So it's extended families were female centered. So husband and wife do not live together. And here it's a residential compounds called and headed by senior woman. This is quite unusual. A similar thing exists in Bosnia, but it's the other way around because it's formed around the husband. So, extended family, the general acceptation of the term is relatives of three or more generations. Okay, so grandparents, parents, children living together. And then sometimes you can add also uncle, aunts, and cousins. Sorry, I'm a little bit sick. Okay, now that we discussed family, so we defined family, we defined kinship, we talked about matrilineal, patrilineal, okay, we discussed descent, lineage, clan. Now I would like us to talk about marriage, okay? What is marriage and who are you allowed to marry? So, although marriage is human, cultural, social, universal, but um, there can be significant variation in motivations for it, function it performs, form it takes, degree of performance, and so on. So, there is no single definition of marriage. The term is broad enough to apply to all human societies and culture. There is an anthropologist, Edmund Lynch, that suggested that marriage can allocate rights. For example, it can establish legal father and mother of children. It can give either both spouses monopoly on sexuality of other. It can give either both spouses rights to labor of other. It can give also rights over others' property. It can establish joint fund of property for children. It can also establish socially significant relationship of affinity between spouses and their relatives. So, different definition of marriage. There is no one single definition, and it is also to establish rules, and it's a form of contract between members. It's usually not only about individuals, but it's a relationship between groups rather than individuals. Romantic love can exist, but marriage is often more a group or a family concern, right? We'll talk in a minute about marital transaction. Before we do that, let's look at different types of marriage. So here it exists what is called polygamy. Polygamy is the practice or custom of having more than one spouse at the same time. And it could be, the term could be specifically polygyny. It's when the husband has more than one spouse, than one wife, and the term is polyandry when the woman, the wife, has more than one husband. Polygyny is the form of polygamy that is widespread. Polyandry is actually quite unusual. It is the example I gave you in the video, that's the TEDx the lady discussed. And it's usually located in the Himalayas. There are polyandric societies in the Himalayas, so in Nepal, north of India, and west of China. That's mainly where we found polyandry. So here, different types of family structure here of marriage. So monogamy. Monogamy is one spouse, one husband. Sorry, it's only one person that you're married to. So it could be either a same-sex marriage, or it could be different sex marriage. That is the most common form of marriage. And then there is polygamy, sorry, what I just explained, with polyandry for men and polygyny for women. And here you should go back to the video. In the video, if you remember, she also explains different form of marriage. I'm not gonna elaborate on that, but you can also go back into it if you would like to have more information. Just so you know here that it exists arranged marriages versus love marriages. Arranged marriages is the most common form of marriage. All right. I'm not talking about forced marriage. I'm talking about arranged marriage, when the family discussed together and agreed on one spouse with another family for the children. It's the most common form. But here there is also, especially in Western culture, Western countries, love marriage, and this form of marriage is getting more and more important everywhere in the world. And finally, I would like to just give you a few terms that here are related to, again, marriage. We called exogamy marriage when a person marries outside of the group. Okay, that's the most common form. And we call endogamy marriage when the person marries inside. So endogamy when the person marries within the group. So here it happens, for instance, where I live in the United Arab Emirates. It's something very common for the people to get married to their cousin. So here it's what we call endogamy marriage, because the person are getting married within the group, right? And then there are there is what we usually call the bride wealth or dowry. So here bride wealth is customary gift or gifts before, at, or after the marriage from husband and his kin to wife or her kin. Okay, so it could be anything. It could be cattle, it could be cash, it could be any other goods, and it designates the gift from the groom to the bride or to the bride's family. It's very common in patrilineal group. The dowry is the wife's family who provides gift to the husband's family. So here the bride's family give gifts to the groom's family, and it tends to correlate with relatively low status for women. But again, it depends of the culture. The bride wealth is more common than the dowry, but it's it happens also quite a lot. All right, that's the end of the chapter. A lot of information in this chapter, even though we could have said much more things about family, kinship, and marriage. I hope it was not too confusing to have all those terms explained. Sorry if I did not go too much into the details for each one. It's like I said, an important chapter, but it's also very broad, and I had to select key information. I thank you very much for your attention. I will keep you posted regarding the quiz and the little essay I would like you to do. And I thank you very much again and see you soon. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.